There are moments when a city feels completely ordinary, and yet, something is about to happen. Today, we are walking through one of the most famous avenues in the world, the Champs-Élysées. But we are not here on an ordinary day. Paris is preparing. In just a few days, the streets will be filled with celebrations. The French flag will be everywhere. Crowds will gather. Music will fill the air. And millions of eyes will turn toward this city. But right now, it's different. It's afternoon. People are walking. Tourists are taking photographs. Cafes are busy. Shops are open. And life continues as normal. Or at least, it appears to. Because if you look closely, you can feel something in the air. Paris is waiting. And today, we are going to walk through the heart of the city before the celebration begins. Welcome to the Champs-Élysées. Welcome to Paris. The Champs-Élysées is more than just a beautiful street. For many people around the world, it is Paris. When people imagine the French capital, they imagine elegant buildings, cafes, luxury shops, tourists walking beneath the trees, and somewhere at the end of the avenue, the Arc de Triomphe. But this avenue has another identity. It is a stage where history has been celebrated, where victories have been announced, where millions of people have gathered, and where France has shown the world who it is. Today, however, the atmosphere feels surprisingly relaxed. People are simply going about their day. A tourist stops to take a photograph. Someone sits outside a cafe. A group of friends walks past. And somewhere nearby, a taxi disappears into the Parisian traffic. This is the fascinating thing about famous places. We see them in photographs. We see them in films. We see them on social media. But when you finally arrive, you discover something unexpected. The real place is not a photograph. It is a living city. And right now, we are walking through it. The Champs-Élysées has been changing for centuries. What we see today was not always here. The avenue grew from a much quieter landscape, and over time, it became one of the grandest urban spaces in the world. The name itself comes from Greek mythology, the Elysian Fields, a paradise reserved for heroes and the virtuous after death. And perhaps there is something fitting about that name, because walking here can sometimes feel like walking through a dream of Paris. But behind the beauty, there is also power. The Champs-Élysées has witnessed moments that changed France. Kings, revolutions, wars, liberations, celebrations, and national ceremonies. Generation after generation, people have walked along this same avenue. Some came to celebrate, some came to protest, some came simply to see history happening in front of them. And today, we are walking here during another moment in the story, the days before Bastille Day, the national celebration of France, a day connected to one of the most famous events of the French Revolution. And while the streets may look peaceful now, in a few days, this same city will feel completely different. Look around. This is where the story becomes interesting, because Paris is not just its monuments. Paris is its people. The person rushing somewhere, the tourist who has stopped to look at a map, the couple taking photographs, the friends meeting for coffee, the local who barely notices the famous buildings anymore, because for them, this is simply home. That's something every great tourist destination has in common. Visitors arrive with excitement, but locals experience the same streets every day. And somewhere between those two perspectives, you find the real city. For a tourist, the Champs-Élysées can feel magical. For someone who lives here, it might simply be the road they take to work. But today, everyone shares the same space. And for a few minutes, we are all part of the same Parisian story. There is something special about visiting a city just before a major celebration. You arrive, and you know something is coming, but you haven't seen it yet. You can only imagine. That's how Paris feels today. The city is preparing for Bastille Day, July 14th, a date that has become one of the most important days on the French calendar. For many people, it represents freedom. For others, it represents the dramatic beginning of a new chapter in French history. And every year, the celebration brings people together. But the most fascinating part is what happens before: the anticipation, the preparation, the quiet streets before the crowds arrive, the moment before the music starts, the moment before the fireworks, the moment before Paris becomes a giant celebration. And that's exactly what we're experiencing now. The calm before the magic. Maybe that's what makes Paris so fascinating. You can walk through the city, and a building, a café, a monument, a corner, Even the people passing by become part of the atmosphere. And here on the Champs-Élysées, the stories seem to multiply. One person is thinking about their next destination. Another is taking their first trip to Paris. Someone else has probably walked this avenue hundreds of times. And we are somewhere in between, just passing through. But for a short moment, we are part of the city. This is why walking is such a special way to discover Paris. You don't experience it all at once. You discover it step by step. The sound of traffic, the conversations around you, the smell coming from a cafe, the sound of footsteps, the changing light on the buildings. And every few minutes, something new catches your attention. But the Champs-Élysées has always been about more than everyday life. This is an avenue built for moments, big moments, historic moments, moments when an entire country wants to look in the same direction. And that is why Bastille Day feels so connected to this place. Imagine this avenue filled with people. Imagine the French flag everywhere. Imagine the sound of music, the movement of crowds, the excitement. And then, look at it today. Quiet, relaxed, almost ordinary. That contrast is what makes this walk so interesting. We are seeing Paris between two worlds, the Paris of everyday life and the Paris of celebration. And perhaps that's the real magic of traveling. Sometimes you don't need to arrive on the biggest day. Sometimes it's even better to arrive just before, because you get to see the city preparing for its moment. Maybe this is the Paris people dream about. Not just the Paris from postcards. Not just the Eiffel Tower. Not just the famous monuments. But this. A simple afternoon. A walk down a famous avenue. A cafe filled with people. Tourists discovering something for the first time. Locals continuing their everyday lives. And a city preparing for another chapter in its long history. Paris has seen revolutions, wars, celebrations, tragedies, and countless generations of visitors. And still, the city continues. The cafes open. The shops welcome customers. The streets fill with people. And somewhere, someone is discovering Paris for the very first time. Maybe that's why this city never truly gets old. Because every person sees a different Paris. And today, this is ours. As our walk comes to an end, Paris is still moving around us. The tourists continue walking. The streets continue carrying people toward their next destination. But somewhere in the background, something is coming. Bastille Day. A celebration. A moment when this quiet afternoon will become a memory. And perhaps, that's what makes today special. We didn't come to Paris on the day of the celebration. We came just before the crowds, before the fireworks, before the excitement reaches its peak. We came when Paris was simply Paris. And maybe that's the best way to discover a city. Not when everyone is looking at it, but when you have time to look back, to notice the small things, the people, the streets, the cafes, the sounds, the moments that disappear almost as quickly as they arrive. So, if you ever find yourself in Paris, take a walk. Don't rush. Let the city reveal itself, because sometimes the most beautiful moment is the moment just before everything begins. And from the Champs-Élysées, before Bastille Day, I'll see you on the next walk.